Hey everyone, Kela Louise here, and welcome to my podcast, Wide Open, where we talk about women's health, relationship, sex, trauma, overcoming hardship, building a life that truly feels like your own, and basically anything we damn well feel like. We look to open up a dialogue that promotes healing and growth for women, and honestly, anyone who's listening. Today, I'm chatting with Cassandra Prochera, who's a female snowbike ambassador for Yeti Snow MX. With 4 years in the snowbike industry, she is fiercely paving the way for female snowbikers in British Columbia. More recently, she was blessed with the unexpected pregnancy of her beautiful twins. Today, we will dive into a more personal side of Cass, discussing her recent unexpected pregnancy and the birth of her twins. So let's get wide open. Awesome. How are you doing?
Good. I can tell you now, newborns, it's no secret that they're a handful. And I can tell you twins is absolutely all of the time that I have, 100%.
Yeah. Well, thank you for making the time and thank you for reaching out. So I'm really excited to get into this topic with you. I know we've tried to do a podcast before and it just hasn't lined up, but I think this is kind of a really good topic. And
where it was maybe meant to go and be. Yeah,
yes.
100%.
Well, we'll start off. Today we're going to be going into your life with your twins, the birth of your twins, kind of talking about pre-pregnancy, a little bit before, and then during the pregnancy, and what you have in store for the upcoming bike season with snowbiking and where you expect to be as a mother and as an athlete.
Totally.
And so we'll start off, just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're living. You don't have to say exactly where, what you do for work or what you have been doing for work, and then how do people know you in the sports industry?
I'm in Revelstoke, British Columbia, based out of BC now, but originally from Saskatchewan. And it was there that I had started. What I do primarily is I'm an electrician by trade, and that's where I started that. Grew up in Saskatchewan, small town girl, and right out of high school, had bought my mom's house off her, and kind of really went that way in terms of being more so domesticated type. Bought the house right out of school, and then went to post-secondary school, working up the career and all that. And there was a shift there where it was, because I love you, I got to leave you with the relationship I was in at the time, and stepped back from that. And from there, everything really took a turn towards, I want to say, the opposite of that, where, for me, stepping away from the house and that, I was just open to travel and actually couldn't get that off my mind. Being from a home where my parents had split when I was very young, we didn't do a lot of traveling growing up. So for me, born and raised on the prairies, until I was about 23, 24, that's all I had known, and where I'd been was just on the prairies. But though, had a really great childhood growing up, saying that, my parents divorced, and it might sound weird, but I'm glad they did. Like they were awesome. My childhood was awesome. There's no, hard feelings or anything towards that and what that was. It was really simple growing up, and though, when I think about it, I love it. There's nothing about it that I would change. But I guess relevance to this, there was no travel up until that point. Now, when I'd stepped away from the home that I grew up in, I just will say it, I couldn't get New Zealand off my mind. And that's where I found myself really focused to trying to, and to want to go and experience. I found out that I had all the hours that I needed to complete my electrical school. And with that then being said, I've actually put my truck up for sale. Had my seat in school 6 months from when I booked my flights, a return flight to New Zealand, and just went for it, and to try and tell mom, flying to the other side of the world, yes, I'm going by myself, I'm going for 4 months, and her just like, what, where is this coming from, and it being that, even from a place where it was really simple growing up to like, you're flying by yourself now to the other side of the world, and it was just, there was no stopping me from that point. And I want to say from then and for the next 5 years, everything was just kind of, I want to say not totally on a whim, but whatever was like a bit of a gut instinct or on my mind, I just said yes to it. And so within that being said, it was, I'm going to New Zealand, and really why, I can't tell you, other than I just can't stop thinking about it. I'm going for it. So I ended up booking a return flight for that, because I did have to be back for my last year of electrical school. And in the trades, you do 2 months of schooling for electricians, 2 months of schooling, and then you collect working hours for a year. and then you go to school again for another two months in schooling, and then you collect working hours for another year, and that's how you accumulate your work hours and your in-school time. After 4 years, you're a ticketed Red Seal journey person, within whatever trade you're in. For electricians, it's 4 years, and so I had the last year left, and anyway, so with that then in the pocket, I was going to New Zealand. I went and experienced that. It was amazing for, of course, all that it is, and it was there. Then, of course, that was the first time I had ever been in the mountains. So for me, it was, landing in New Zealand is 2 islands, landed in the North Island, toured that. It was a blast, meeting a lot of great people. And then it was near the end of my trip, I, left the most expensive town, Queenstown, New Zealand. I want to say is kind of sort of like the sister version of Whistler. And a lot of people would say like, oh, if you go to, Queenstown, it is more of an expensive place. It's really tourist-like. A bit of a party town, that sort of thing. But so I kind of saved that spot for last. I had my last 10 days in New Zealand for Queenstown, and it was there that I got into downhill mountain biking, and that kind of blew up my world at the time. Once I started doing that, I couldn't stop, and it was all the people that I had met while in the bike park there in Queenstown that were saying, Cass, we'll see you in Whistler during Crankworks in August. And those were the type of people, of course, that are chasing summer, so they're so into the bike scene, and I didn't realize at the time some of the big names in the downhill mountain bike scene, like, being a girl from the prairies, there is no downhill mountain biking. I'm just, hey, I'm Cass, and sweet, I'm into mountain biking like the rest of y'all, and being there in my Lululemon pants, renting the stuff every day, you know what I mean? Like that total look, and I look back at photos, and I just, laugh and smile, and I'm, so proud of that girl who was just like the yes girl, and just genuinely really excited to be there. And, it was within that time, just that, hey, I'm Cass, breaking away from that person I was, and that, not that I didn't like when I was here in Saskatchewan, and growing up, but it was me being there, reintroducing myself a lot of times, experiencing new things, almost finding a part of myself that I wasn't totally aware of, and it was good for me to have had that time away and alone, and, it was like a new version of myself came back. So then when I did come back, I had that seed planted in my mind that was Whistler, Crankworks, August, and to go and check it out. So that's what brought me from Saskatchewan to BC originally, was the downhill mountain biking. And I think a lot of people maybe wouldn't know me for that. I know there was my friends that people that I met there that I became really good friends with that are like, what, you don't mountain bike anymore? Because it was so much of my world. Right away I got into downhill mountain bike guiding, or mountain bike guiding in Squamish, and would ride the bike park in Whistler, dirt bike a bit in Pemberton. And now it's come back around to dirt bikes again. For me, dirt bikes in Saskatchewan was motocross. Of course, not like enduro riding. Again, that's the prairies, right? So I had a dirt bike, would do a bit of it, brought it with me from Saskatchewan to BC. And then after a while, it all finally came back around to power sports. And that's where I'm at now. And just, I guess, with my genuine enthusiasm for the sport, being excited and kind of just throwing myself into different groups or, opportunities with sport, I got to meet a lot of really amazing people and ended up getting noticed by some people who were involved in a search for climb at the time. And I was actually asked to reach out to, apply for this search for a Canadian ambassador for climb. And once I went ahead and did that, I got to meet a lot of great people in the industry. And it was, just because I was excited, screaming, yelling, smiling, maybe in photos, making outrageous videos that caught some attention, and just a bit of your true personality coming out. It almost seemed like with myself and with, the sports and how it evolved was really meant to be, in a bit of a sense. So from the mountain bike scene, I found myself, going into, being here in BC and knowing about mountain sledding, of course, and now, again, another thing you don't do in Saskatchewan, but, hearing about it, knowing about it, being excited, to give it a try. I'm like, God, one of the better places you can do that sounds like Revelstoke, BC, not knowing much about, just from what you hear. And again, it was like that feeling that I had when I, before I went to New Zealand. I'm like, I can't get it out of my mind. I guess this winter I'm going to Revelstoke and I'm going to start sledding. And it was really just as simple as that. And then, coming into the community, hey, I'm Cass, throwing myself into maybe some situations where I can maybe meet some really great people who are involved. And it just went from there.
Wow. Yeah. And so now that you're in the snowbiking, how long has snowbiking kind of been a thing in British Columbia? Like, do you know, it still feels like it's fairly new, but...
Totally. It has evolved really fast, and now there are a lot of really great athletes who are, all into it. And But from what I know, now for me, this will be my 5th snow bike season. As I like, eventually, I'm going to be coming up. We'll get there, but coming into it here pretty soon, actually. But I've had 4 snow bike seasons previous, and previous to that, 2 sled seasons. And now I know when I was sledding, a lot of the friends that I would ride with would know that I like to dirt bike as well. In the summer, I would know some people who had snow bikes, and like, oh, they know I'd always get the Cass, stay away from the snow bike. They're not like a sled. Like, there's the typical banter with any sport, maybe skiers versus snow biker, or snowboarders. And it's the same thing with, like maybe snow bikers and sledders. There's just that fun banter back and forth. And, being somebody on a sled, and as I was getting into, it was photography, though, that really did help me explode a bit of myself in the sports industry. I would go out and I would take photos for different people who had events, like my friend Julianne Chapman. That's actually how I got to meet her. She's based out of the Kootenays and does the She Shreds Mountain Adventures. I also reached out to Nadine Overwater. She does the La Nina sled camps or clinics here in Revelstoke, BC, and it was through that I got to experience and get my feet on the ground with photography and taking photos for those groups and having fun with that. And so while I was doing that and on a sled, I also had friends that were on snow bikes, and so there was the banter back and forth with the sledders and the snow bikers. And what I had gotten to understand at the time was that snow bikes, they can't go all of the places that sleds go. They're underpowered. They break down all the time. They're a real pain in the ass. They cost so much money. And I'm sitting there on my sled. I'm like, well, this thing wasn't cheap. Like all of it is quite a bit involved to get up there. But eventually, I got to a point where it was either I was going to upgrade the sled, because it was a 2014 XM Ski-Doo that I was on, and it was either I was going to upgrade the sled or I was going to build my first snow bike. I had gone out once for just a quick little ride. A friend of mine had a snow bike and said, "Oh, Cass, get on the thing." So I jumped on the snow bike and had a blast. It was fun. He had an upgraded kit, and it really is the quality that you put into making a snow bike that's really going to make the difference. If you're going to take an underpowered dirt bike and put maybe a smaller track kit on it, you're not going to get a bike that's going to be able to perform or keep up in places such as Revelstoke, BC, where the snow is crazy deep, the terrain is steep, all of that. So it's really, knowing how to build a capable snow bike that's going to be the difference. So I've been on a few where, I've met up with some people and they're excited to maybe, give the new track kit a try, and I'm happy to, jump on my bike, give the track kit a try. Maybe, if you want, take it for a ride from here to there, and if you want, I can ride your snow bike, and we'll go for a bit of a ride, and I can notice the difference right away, and know maybe, and see why some people might not appreciate snow biking as much, just based on how you build them and put them together. So, at the start and where they'd come from, as much as my understanding is, it was smaller kits and maybe not put together as great as they are now. So they have come a long way in the last 10 years. So I want to say though, within they've really picked up since 2016, 2018 or so, and are now really becoming more and more popular with each season. I feel like I see much more of them. And now where we live in Revelstoke, BC, not far from the mountains that you do ride, just in Revelstoke's backyard, I can hear them all the time. So I'll be out, the twins will be napping, and I'll be out shoveling just to get some fresh air, and I can hear the snow bikes like right outside my house. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, so now, like before you had the twins, or before you even found out you had the twins, was there somewhere where you were going with that sort of like the ambassadorship with the snow biking, and like what were your plans with that before you found out you were pregnant?
So if we were to, I guess, start from the beginning of that story, so if we were to go back to a year ago, I'd say just over a year ago now, so the start of last year's snow bike season, I actually got, everything felt like it was going in the right direction in terms of ambassadorship. I was excited to give it my all as much as I could. I had the time, to maybe travel a bit, and things felt really good with brands such as Klein, Yeti Snowmax. Yeti Snowmax had come back. It was bought back by C3 Powersports. So, and they were excited to have me continue on with them as an ambassador. Previous to them buying it back, they had it before in 2016. But when I started with Yeti Snowmax, Michelin actually owned it. So I pitched myself to them. So when I was like, am I going to upgrade my sled, or am I going to build my first snow bike, I actually reached out to Yeti Snowmax saying, hey, I'm Cass. I've never snow biked before, but this is going to be my first season. And for me, it was from that email, hey, yeah, Cass, good to meet you. We know actually a bit about you. Where can we send your track kit? I'm like, what? or like it actually was amazing how, I don't want to say easily, but like I feel like I was meant to, get into the sport. Like it's just how it went. Me being totally honest, hey, I'm Cass, I've never snowbiked before. Da, da, da. And it has with each season substantially built up from there. And I feel like it was going really well. This was then last year, my first season with C3 as the owners of Yeti Snowmats, and they were excited to have me on board and just continue with the way I had been promoting myself, or riding, and with content for that. And so that was my plan for the winter. Just to continue being based out of Revelstoke, BC, makes it easy for me to do that. It's a lot of great riding right here. It brings a lot of great people here, but then it's also we're in BC, so there's a lot of great riding everywhere. But to get to the point of the question, it was the start of last season. I actually got, I'll keep a little bit of this oblivious, but I got a message from somebody asking if I'd be interested in a snowbike stunt double role that was up and coming within the next month or so. And I thought to myself, well, this is not anything I've done before, and more so, let's say, in the stunt scene or stunt world. And so I asked a bit more about it, and apparently, and I got to find out that it was actually this Hollywood movie that was being filmed on the West Coast that they need the stunt double for. And I said, I'm going all in. I've never done anything like that before, but absolutely, yeah, keep me in the loop kind of thing. I'd had something similar come up in the past. Somebody needed a snowbike stunt double for this Netflix thing, and then they found out how short I was, and it was like, oh, absolutely not going to work. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's fine. I'm like, oh, that's fair enough. That's fine. And then this one came up, and I'm like, yeah, totally. By the way, I'm 5'2", but I'm all excited for all of what this is going to be. And I'm like, oh, they were pumped, they were excited. So they said, we'll be in touch with you soon. And sure enough, maybe within the week, they reached. Actually, the stunt director reached out to me saying, hey, Cass, this is a film actually owned by Disney that they're right now building rides for in Disneyland, Disney World. We're excited to have you on board. I got to learn, some of the cast that was involved in this movie. And I thought, wow, this is sounding like a little bit more than I had originally thought. But I was excited to jump into it. And so it was last year, starting in December. I was actually driving back and forth from Revelstoke to the West Coast. They have a studio called Mammoth Studios in Burnaby, Vancouver. And so it's basically within this studio. It's the size of maybe like 10 Costco's put together. This massive building. It's a movie land. Where they were filming this movie that is up and coming and needing a snowbiker for. So I go, and a part of that was doing costume fitting, bike build, and each time I'm going for, meeting the cast, the crew, the stunts team, I'm finding out how much is involved in this movie. And what I had come to find out was also that it was a $350 million movie, and the director was the director for Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm like, wow, this is... So for me, my season to be excited for like Yeti Snowmats and C3 Power Sports is now taking it back, and me working with them for the first time. Now I've got this crazy big Hollywood movie that I'm excited to, also want to do a good job for. And I found myself traveling back and forth quite a bit for that. That was all, happening, and finally built up to, I think it was in February, we went and filmed the snowbike scene for this. So it was myself, and I want to say like 100 or so, maybe 120 people, just for myself and this crazy big snowbike that was built for the movie. It ended up being a 550-pound snowbike, and being the opening scene of this Hollywood movie. And there was all these people there just for myself, for this female lead character. And it just, it was like I'm sitting there within all, amongst all this, the team for the bike, the stunts director, and the team for costume, all there for just myself and this bike, and the drone pilot there with his $150,000 drone. I'm sitting there and I'm like, how am I going to explain this, or explain this experience to anybody? It was pretty incredible, the experience in itself. And so when I had went for that was probably a week and a half of shooting with that team. And we went. It felt like it went well. And maybe a couple days after coming back, I found out, or I got a call from the stunts coordinator saying, Cass, the main director, saw the snowbike footage and he loved it. He actually wants to go back in a couple of weeks and extend the snowbike scene and shoot more. And I thought, like, for myself and the experience of that, I told him, yeah, I'm all in. Keep me posted. Let me know, maybe a timeline so I can tell my employer at the time. And I'll be happy to make that work if I can. He's like, okay, yeah, for sure. This is probably not going to be right away, but probably within the next couple of weeks. And so, yeah, for sure. So a lot of my focus was, of course, then also we're coming around to it being March and snow check season for Yeti Snowmax. Now this movie is really ramping up. They want to go back and shoot more. I myself actually went on the pill in January. So just to, like, if within that time frame, really focusing on the movie, wanting to do a good job for Yeti Snowmax, snow check season's coming up. I went on the pill, and just a little background to that is because my period is actually so brutal that I was hoping that maybe to go on the pill, it might help to correct that a little bit. I just get really bad lower back pain, and with all the snow bike stuff going on, I was actually finding it difficult. Some days, you're there and there's a massive camera crew, whether that's for a bit for Yeti Snowmax, just yourself and the group that you're riding with, or for this like big movie that was going on. So I started taking the pill in January, and as I moved through, the first part of the season from there, February we went and shot the first bit of the movie. That was a good week and a half for this opening scene, and then I come back and I'm waiting for my call back in March to go and shoot again because the director's excited, wants to shoot more. And within that time, as I'm riding and shooting for Yeti, based out of Revelstoke, BC, and going back to work, I actually ended up getting pregnant as well. So so that really focused on a lot of and so winters are really busy for me because for me, I appreciate dirt biking, but for me, dirt biking isn't snowbiking. Snowbiking is and winter is my primary time or sport that I like to, spend a lot of my time or put a lot of myself into. And so for that, I was, of course, really focused on my time on those things, the Yeti Snowmax stuff, the movie stuff going on. I was doing my best to also be working for the employer or for the electrician that I was at the time, and ended up getting pregnant. Wasn't, of course, not aware of it, and then got the call back to go and shoot more for the movie. So I go back, we're riding and shooting, and it was an amazing day. We just had one day that we needed to shoot for this, to grab a couple extra things to extend the scene. So that ended up being, I believe, a 14-hour ride day that day. And it was the next day that I was actually starting to experience morning sickness. I remember waking up the next morning and I'm like, oh, my tits are sore. Like, it was just, I felt like, like you're tired after a big day of riding, and we had done that week and a half prior, and those were something like 10 to 12-hour days. And it's like, I feel like my lifestyle is pretty active. I can recover pretty quick from those sorts of things. But I did this, and it was a pretty big day. It was a 14-hour ride day, but I woke up that next morning, and I'm like, holy cow. Like, I just felt totally wiped, starting to feel sick. My tits are killing me. I'm like, I'm starting to think that this might be something a little more than just exhaustion from riding. And I did skip my period previous, but for me, it's not weird for me to skip a period if I'm really active. And, with all the travel I had back and forth, that bike that I was riding for the movie was 550 pounds. I did that for a week and a half, and then when I did come back, I was still riding for Yeti Snowmax and running 10K before work, some days before work. And work itself is electrical work, residential. Some of it was trench work, big cables, and excavating and that sort of thing. So when I did skip my period in April, I wasn't, of course I did. Or like when it was time for it to come around and it didn't happen, I'm like, of course it didn't happen. Because that had been my schedule for the last month and a half, 2 months. Mm-hmm. So totally not put off by any means. But then after, it was maybe a week and a half or so after I had skipped my period, I go and I shoot the second bit for the movie, and the timing is amazing. And then it was the day after. I'm like, oh my God. It was just, and so for me then I'm like, maybe I should pee on a stick, here in the next little while. It was then on my mind. I'm like, okay, maybe this is something. Maybe this is fair. Yeah. So that's kind of where I was at pre-pregnancy, where I just felt really good about where ambassadorships were going, and my relationship with brands that had been for a while. And then on my plate, and I explained to some of them, like, oh, I'm excited to give my all for this season, but also this season I have this. Then that was the movie. So just so you're aware, and it all worked out in the end, and I was able to jump in with some filming for Yeti. They had a filmer for us in March, I believe it was, for snow check season, or maybe at the end of February for snow check season, and it was really just kind of one thing into the next. And so when I found out I was pregnant, talk about slamming gears from, focusing primarily on one thing and, being on the pill, it not being a thought or, something that I was prepared for, to then be, now this is where we're at, or, this is what's going on, I guess to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can ever have some sort of a shock if you're like not totally prepared for pregnancy. I think even if you're prepared to get pregnant, there's got to be some sort of like a, oh my gosh, my life is totally going to be different from now on. Um, yeah, that's like pretty incredible though, the timing of everything. So when you did find out though, like was children sort of in your plan, or was like that totally left field for you?
I want to say it was told. It wasn't a big conversation that I'd had with my boyfriend previous to this happening. It maybe came up once. He and I, at the time, were together for just over a year when we got pregnant. We'll be together for 2 years at the end of this month. So we're 2 years together and we have two kids. So that's kind of just a funny joke that he likes to throw around. But um, previous to me being with him, I was actually single for 7 years. And for me, and it was a part of that was, coming away from that house that I lived in Saskatchewan, going to New Zealand, coming to BC, and just really being all about whatever I was doing in the sports scene. So it really was not something on my mind during that time, of course. And I know that it's for some people, kids and that lifestyle and all that, and it's really not for other people. And and it wasn't absolutely a thought for me or something that concerned me so much that it's like, oh, at the time I had just turned 31 when he and I started hanging out. I guess we didn't start dating right away, but women are you could be coming into your 30s and it kind of be, and if you're single, a thought like, oh, it's not going that way for me, or I'm not having kids, or a family life is not really building up, or it's not really appearing or seeming like it's maybe going to be a thing in your life. But after being with him, it's not until maybe you're with somebody that you find that you connect with so well, or that there is that real love there, that it then is a thought. When he and I started dating, it was still a lot about my the sports that I was doing, and he and I in that first year. And so then when I found out that we were pregnant there, and I took that test, I remember going and he was away for work. Actually, he was up at camp. And I'm like, oh, and I remember it was during the day. I was at work one day and I just could not get it out of my mind. I'm like, a part of me knew I was pregnant with before even taking the test, and it was really on my mind. And I remember that day after work, I dropped my tools right at 4. We're done at work at 4, and went to the pharmacy, got a pregnancy test, and came home and just threw it in the bathroom and kind of walked away from it, and left it there. And I don't know, just kind of tried to not trying to keep it out of my mind, but just leave it there for he and I, maybe because he was going to then be home over the weekend. But by that evening, I'm just like, Cass, you got to just maybe man up and do this, because it was really just starting to, I don't know, get to me in a bit of a way where I'm like, I just need to do it. And so I did. And so when I did, I remember took the test, closed the little cap on it, and just kind of like threw it to the bathroom and left the bathroom. And like, oh, like it just felt like I guess like I had said, like I had known what it was going to say, but it only needs a couple of minutes. And then I went into the bathroom, and when I looked at it on the floor, of course it's face down, and I'm like, oh god. So then I walk into the bathroom, and I swear, like, I've never had my hand shake like that before, but reaching out to pick it up off the floor, my hand is just shaking, and I flip it over, and when I flip it over and I see a positive pregnancy test, my first thought isn't like, oh yay, we're pregnant, and but it also isn't like, oh no. It was kind of like there wasn't much of a thought, just a bit of shock, and like, there's got to be an app for this, or like, because it wasn't a thought, and like, where do I start? And that sounds bad. There's got to be an app for this, but I remember just thinking like, I need to read up on this. And at the time, Olaf wasn't with me; he was up at camp, so I'm like now wide awake at 10 o'clock at night, and just slowly starting to look into things, reading up on some stuff, and like, it's still like it's sitting beside me every once in a while, picking it up and looking at it, not in total disbelief, but kind of like it was. Absolutely, I was on the pill and really focused on what I had going on with the bike stuff, to like slamming in a 180 basically into now this being my life, and focus going into this, and how that radically changes your world and your thought process, or and just with planning and everything is hard to explain somewhat. I feel like for me it was easy for me to, and not that I felt like I had to, but I just felt like stepping back from things like social media felt really good for me. But primarily, social media for me was more of, it's not like it's just a part of my life that is just my sports life, I want to say. It's almost like a bit of what I do on the snow bike, and that it's not that, I wouldn't just do it for myself, and that, I don't just love it for me, but it was almost like my part-time job or something, in terms of like, that's my, it wasn't, I wouldn't go super personal, I guess, with social media. Not that I wasn't myself, but it wasn't just my everyday, it was a little bit more,
Tailored towards your
business, like,
sport and business.
yeah, totally.
Yeah. Yeah. So when did you guys find out that you were having twins, and how was
So
that?
there was the first shock, like, whoa, positive pregnancy test, right? So that was, and it was like, and it was only within, the day, I told Olaf the next day, and, we're in tears about it, excited, and it's like, we weren't planning for it, but then right away it was like, we couldn't be without it. So we're excited, and I think at that time, and then I went it was so early or whatnot, I had called, and I guess a bit of the routine when it's that early, I called the clinic, the medical clinic here in town, in Revelstoke, and they're like, okay, we'll have you come in for a pregnancy confirmation, and from there we can see how far along you are, and then be able to book prenatal appointments and all that stuff, make a plan from there. And even just that phone call was weird. The thought of, and you saying you're pregnant, or, and going through then those steps and things that you know about, but then to put yourself into, and like, that's what we're doing now, is kind of it's only a constant. I want to say up until I was maybe 6 months pregnant, it was still kind of shocking for me sometimes, as you would, whether you're waking up in the morning and you're planning for all these things and talking about things like the nursery and all that. It was continuously like, wow, a bit shocking for myself. So for me, it was from there, finding the positive pregnancy test, then booking this pregnancy confirmation appointment. So I went in, they did confirm that I was pregnant, and they said, oh, no, you're actually not 5 weeks. I was just guessing. I don't know how they count. At the time, I didn't know how they counted the weeks for how far along you might be. I was counting, like, from my last period and that, but they knew, and they said, oh, actually, you're 7.5 weeks pregnant. Routine ultrasounds are 10 weeks and 20 weeks. So we'll have you come in for your 10 weeks. So they were just running you through everything. And so the first ultrasound was, I had to wait we thought we were having one for a few weeks up until the 10 week. And we go there, and this is kind of a funny story. We go there, it's at the hospital here in Revelstoke, and at this point, all you've seen is, and I was experiencing morning sickness, I should say, so it felt real in that sense, but all we had seen, of course, was just this positive pregnancy test. And so you're excited and nervous because you're excited because, for the obvious reasons, you're pregnant and all that, and you want to maybe, see the baby there and all, and that everything is okay. But then you're nervous because you're hoping everything is okay. And, just that, all of that is, makes for a bit of a, well, it's an exciting appointment. So we get to the hospital, and they tell me, like, oh, yeah, imaging and ultrasound is just down the hall. You can wait out over there. They'll come grab you when they're ready. And so we weren't waiting long, and then the x-ray tech comes around, and she is just, like, booming excited. Hey, Cassandra. And I'm like, oh, shit, hey, yeah. And so we're laughing and talking, and she actually tells Olaf, we'll get you to just wait out here in the hallway, because they actually just need to run through a bunch of stuff for the doctor before they play around, and we'll show you then the screen, and you can talk and see the baby yourself. She's like, we'll just get you to wait out here while I collect what I need to for the doctor, and then I'll come out and grab you, and we can look around and all that. So we leave him, and as her and I are walking to the ultrasound room, we're laughing and talking, and she's poking fun at some of the doctors that she obviously knows and sees there in the hospital. And we get into the ultrasound room, and whatever we're talking and laughing about, I can't remember, but she tells me I can lay down, and she's going through all her stuff. And I'll just call it a wand, the piece, or like the wand that they put on your stomach for the ultrasound. So she's laughing and smiling, and as soon as she touches that down on my stomach, her face goes totally straight, and she stops talking, and she squints her face up to the monitor. I can't see it, because the monitor, the screen is just facing herself. And she's on my right side, and I'm looking up at her while she's like laughing and smiling, and as soon as she touches it down, her face goes totally straight, and she squints up at the screen, and I'm like, oh, do you see anything in there? I didn't say anything to her, because it's like, oh, she's doing her job, her stuff, and I'm laying there just then all of a sudden kind of put off by how much her attitude has changed. So, and to me, maybe it felt like a long time, just because I'm kind of starting to worry a bit at this point. I can see that she's clicking away, and she's moving the wand around and that sort of thing. And then finally, she's like, okay, Cassandra, I'm going to jump out in the hallway and grab your partner, and then we can go over a few things. And I'm like, oh, like, I'm excited, but I'm kind of worried at this point. I'm like, yeah, okay, like, we'll have a look. And so she goes and grabs Olaf and puts him on my left side, and she's on my right side with all her stuff, the monitor and everything like that. And she turns the screen to face us, and as soon as she puts the wand down on my stomach, you can see these two little jelly beans and this line dividing them down the middle. And I'm not like, a wizard with ultrasound images and whatnot, but to maybe see one but when you're looking at it, you see this obvious line dividing these, and so I'm looking at it, and it's probably one of the only times in my life I've been totally speechless or lost for words in a sense, where I'm looking at this and I can't talk. I'm just looking at it and I'm thinking, I don't know if I'm looking at what I think I'm looking at. And so she goes on and she's like, over here we have fetus A and over here we have fetus B, and we're just like we just can't seem to say anything. And I'm just looking at this screen, and then finally she just stops looking at the screen and looks at us, and she's like, oh, you didn't know you were having twins? And it's just like, from there I just started laughing, and she's like, oh, that's why it took me so long. I had to do everything twice. And so it's like this relief, but it was also like, at that point, because her attitude had changed so much, I'm like, oh, I'm waiting for something to be wrong, and now here it is, we've got two. And Olaf and I just start laughing, and I started crying a bit because it was just, because everything is okay. And when she zooms in on one and you can see two little arms and legs kicking around, and then the other one, it's a beautiful moment. That's one of those to try and explain is its own, right? So it was amazing, at that time, and for that, and then that was our next surprise, right? So then it's like, from the pregnancy, having twins. We weren't planning on getting pregnant initially, but we're excited, I guess, to say, though. Like, it's not like, and she's like, oh, you guys are actually taking this really well, taking this better than most couples typically do. And I guess it can be a lot. Maybe, I don't know if you already have one, but we were excited. It was,
well, it kind of just seems like, I mean, knowing you a little bit, I don't know your partner, but like just the attitude that you project into everything that you do, it's kind of like, well, I'm going to go at it with like full throttle and take it all for what it is. And like, I think that's just the next adventure, is just, this was your next adventure.
And it's like, I feel like Olaf, he and I are both quite similar. I find he's got more patience than me, so thank goodness, especially for this situation. But we're both like adult kids within ourselves. We're both a bit just very easygoing, and with all this right from the beginning, it's like, this is going to be fun, to relive all the childhood things again that I grew up really appreciating, and it's a really beautiful thing that life did end up going this way. I'd say for the two of us.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very beautiful thing. So are your twins identical or fraternal?
No. You know what? I've actually said this a few times. If I didn't carry them myself, I wouldn't have even guessed them to be sisters.
Really?
They look so different. It's fun. If you were to take a newborn photo of myself, you would swear that baby is Olivia. And if you take a newborn photo of Olaf, that is Emma. It's like, he and I don't look all that alike, and so it's like, oh, and you talk to a few people within the family, and it's like, oh, we're so excited to see what they look like, and to maybe see what a blend would look like. And no, we get one of Cass, one of Olaf, and it's kind of funny that even their attitudes are kind of that way. One is like super easygoing and kind of like a little bit of a Rambo type, and the other one is a little bit more, very much independent, and I don't know, I guess a little bit more chill at times, I guess, but they're two very different babies. Not just, the way they look, but also the way they act.
Yeah. Okay. So they are true fraternal twins, but both girls. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how their personalities come out in the next even year. Let's just see what we got here, because we've already talking about quite a lot. Did you, okay, so I guess we could talk a little bit about your mental and physical challenges during the pregnancy. I mean, I don't want to say everything's a challenge, because I want to also touch on some of the better parts of pregnancy that I think a lot of women maybe want to talk about. Yeah, like I think it's like a journey for so many women that is a beautiful journey, and it can be very challenging, but I think it's like nice to highlight the beautiful parts so that we do encourage women to want to go into that journey.
Sorry, go ahead.
But yeah, like if you want to talk about some of the challenges, or if you had any doubts, like initially about like what your life in the sports industry was going to be going forward, because I'm sure you had a little bit of like thoughts on how am I going to maintain what I've already created,
and what that's going to be like after, and like that keeps moving versus it slows things down a bit in your life for this, of course, right now. And and I'm glad that you mentioned wanting to bring up the positive and the good experience that can come with pregnancy. I found actually, I don't know if you're the type to be a bit more active pregnancy can maybe be a bit easier. This is a topic that I've had this chat with a few women, but my pregnancy, and I actually felt like it wasn't a breeze. You hear about pregnancy in these stories, and once you become pregnant, everyone's excited to share their experience or their wife's experience as their wife was pregnant with their children and all that sort of thing. So it can be very, very different for everybody. And I did have about 5 weeks, though, of feeling of the morning sickness. I didn't actually throw up, but it felt like a 5-week hangover. Like I may as well have been throwing up. It was a pretty intense sickness that feels like kind of like a hangover. You're always feeling quite nauseated, low of energy, that sort of thing. But aside from that, which is fair enough, I actually felt like myself before I was pregnant to some degree. I felt really good. I was able to go back to work after that morning sickness was done, which is typically a first trimester thing. And for some women, they're sick through the whole thing. So for me, and all of what I have to say is, my experience was actually pretty good. And even into, I want to say more than halfway through my third trimester, I was feeling really capable. I was feeling really good. I found the hardest, or the challenge with pregnancy was maybe more so some of the opinions that others would have, or a bit of the, whether it be like opinions or, in stories that were maybe like less helpful. I find, in today's world, and I can appreciate it as we're all, things are changing. You can tell have really evolved and come a long way from generation to generation. But, when a woman is pregnant, help her for all that she needs and all that she wants, but then also maybe, in a bit of a sense, leave her alone a bit. I found that there was a lot of people who were, especially as I was showing, excited to say things like, "Oh, she's not gonna make it through the month of October. She's gonna have a early pregnancy. She's going to put herself early term pregnancy because she's being too active. Early labor is going to be an issue, and really for me, being sedentary or sitting too much, or everyone's excited to help, and that's so much appreciated. But there were times I actually found it to be, it was not helpful. It's like, the opinions that were coming in and the concern in that was almost, making me feel overwhelmed. Yeah. Or like there was maybe a little bit too much, whether it be judgment or being overanalyzed, I guess. And a lot of that coming from the people who were saying they wanted to help the most. They were, it was coming maybe from a good place. And I can appreciate that. And I think when you're caring, you just have to be aware of that. Like, oh, it's coming from a good place. Mm-hmm. But also near the end, and as I'm hearing that, I just started to feel like I needed some space. Or, that's when like the wall can kind of sort of can come up a bit. So I think it's with each pregnancy and everyone being different, just honing it, like genuinely being, where you're at, everyone's going to be different. But I found the most challenge came from other people at times.
Just the outside noise. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. 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 I could understand that'd be like pretty overwhelming when you're already like just going through the motions, seeing how your body's changing. Every day is just, it's different. And it's every pregnancy that like I have never been pregnant, but any woman that I know that's gone through pregnancy, it's like so different. And maybe just like taking a little step back and just letting that woman reach out if she needs it, because she's probably getting a lot of good information from a lot of people.
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone wants to chime in.
100%.
So yeah. So did you have any doubts though, like going into that and then like realizing that the next snowbike season's definitely not going to be the same, and like did you have any issues with some of your supporters, your suppliers, or your like anyone that you were in the brands that you were working for?
Actually, no. I'll say it was probably, so in April, it was near the end of April, we found out we were pregnant, and that would be at around the time where I would say maybe most people are wrapping up their spring riding, especially after the winter that we had last winter. It was not amazing. There wasn't a ton of snow, so maybe spring riding was wrapping up fairly soon. So, but what Yeti liked to do previous, when it was owned by Michelin, and again, even with C3 Power Sports, they like to do a little bit of a follow-up by the end of the season. And so for snow bikes, or for some people, that can be near the end of the spring ride season, which may be like April, May. If you're an extremist, maybe June or July. But it was probably near the beginning of May, and when I was experiencing this morning sickness, pretty intense, I knew that I wanted to let Yeti Snowmax know. I wanted to let Climb know. I wanted to just touch base, or even like Husqvarna, that, hey, I'm, doing well, still excited to be doing what I can, but right now and where I'm at and what's going on is, that we're expecting and that it's going to be quiet for a while. Because I did feel like I didn't want to be on social media as much. I didn't feel like drawn to it by any means, but I also just wanted to, of course, bring some awareness to those that were supporting me in the sport. So, but I actually had Yeti. Yeti reached out to me, just wanted to do a follow up. Hey, Kat, and hey, Cass, hope you're doing well. Sorry for the delay and touching base, but just wanted to, whenever you can, if you're free for a call, let me know, and love to do a quick follow up and review the season. So I'm like, oh shit, they beat me to it. So I call Yeti, and they were amazing in terms of me explaining. Oh yeah, the season was good. We had that chat. Went over the previous ride season. It was really good. And then we're talking about moving forward then with the next season and what the plan was looking like for them and from their end. And I just kind of then went straight into it with, yes, excited to still be a part of Yeti Snowmax and do what I can next season. As it stands right now, we're expecting for December 17th. My due date was December 17th, but when you have twins or multiples, your due date is actually not at 40 weeks, but at actually 37, 38 weeks. They actually will induce labor. So you don't actually go the full 40-week term when you're having multiples. So at the time, we didn't know we were having twins, and I said, oh, I'm due December 17th, but possibly looking at maybe spring ride season. And of course, this being my first pregnancy, and it can go, you don't know maybe how it's going to go or how you're going to feel and what to expect. I just kind of put it out in that I may be excited to get back out in the snow and just for a bit and for some fresh air here and there, maybe in March, and for the snow check season and for spring riding. And they were awesome. It was like right away, like, oh, Cass, couldn't be more excited for you. That's great. No, don't apologize for not being able to do as much. This is life, and this is the way you'd want it to go. If it's all good, because it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
And that was so nice to have that chat and to feel that continuous support, and not that it was like you're, such a, so much a sales tool versus somebody that you're, is a part of that team, and it's still happy to have you. You are a part of the family, and where you're at right now is amazing, and take that time that you need for that. That felt really good. And I had a quick catch up with Climb and with where they were at. It was like, let us know. They've always been really good. Their support's been, I feel like they've been the easiest in terms of it. They never have sent anything like, here's what we expect for you this season, this many posts per month, or, in stories like that. It's just, here's the gear, keep it up, we love what you do, have a blast. And it's that, more, that's what it's been for myself.
Yeah.
So for them, it was a pretty easy check. Same thing, excited and all good. So I didn't, then obviously in turn, I didn't ask for much or anything from them, just like, oh, though letting them know I'm thinking if I can, I will want to be out in the spring season, maybe just something as simple as a couple pieces that are just exterior type, nothing that's over excessive like base layer, don't even, nothing like a Navi pack or anything like that, just really simple. And, for myself, knowing that's I'm not going to be able to give as much of myself.
Yeah.
So that was where that kind of fell into place here or when we had first found out we were pregnant. And basically left to me to reach out to them when I was feeling ready or capable, or keep in touch as or things, but all the best and that sort of thing. So that's more or less where it had left off there. And now as we're coming back around and into the season started, and I'm feeling actually quite good. Chats are fired up again. Climb sent gear just like whenever you can. Happy for you to jump in when you can. Always so easy. And then with Yeti Snowmax, it was expected me for maybe to be, because I had mentioned before, and I want to, for March. But I've kind of been like, hey, I'm actually feeling really good. Maybe we could, upgrade the track kit here within the next little while, because I'm actually thinking February might be the month that I actually jump out on the snow for the first time.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, that's really nice to hear, because I think that might be something that worries some people who are in the industry a little bit. And it's like the same thing with a job. You, as a woman, giving up that side of your life and knowing that you're not going to be able to give it all, and those babies definitely come priority. But to have a supportive team or industry that's actually supporting the women when we're coming into it, knowing that you're giving so much of yourself for years to something, and just to have that support knowing that if this happens in your life, whether it's a surprise or planned, you still have a future in the industry that you've already put so much effort into. So I
Totally.
think that's
I
really
think
nice to hear.
totally. I think though, and it's not just with women and a little bit with men. I see sometimes, people even just getting into not just kids, but getting into a relationship, and I
Hmm.
find will put so much of themselves then into that and lose a part of themselves. And like I said, not just women, sometimes men as well. But then, of course, what comes around are things like a family, getting pregnant, having kids, and of course, it's easy. It can be easy to lose yourself in that. And
Hmm.
I know, though, with this being said, I know some friends of mine who seem like they're just born to be a mother, and so much of their
Yeah.
life and world is just that. And I love that, absolutely love that for them. And that is meant to maybe be more so their place where they are super fulfilled with that. And I find for myself, this is something that I want to share with them as they grow older. Like uh, the sports that I love and enjoy doing, I want to keep up with doing, and I don't want to lose. I don't want to lose that part of myself. I want to bring them into that part of my life with me as I can as they grow up. And of course, they're my first priority and number one. And there's a part of you that's so drawn to that. And because they do need you so much, you can feel that. It's not just you knowing that, you can feel that. So you're just drawn to that and your time being there. But I found the biggest part of what has helped me to recover, though, too. The hardest part after having the twins was because I am the type that can be cabin fever-ish type. Like I've just been that on the go kind of person. That's I feel better and my best maybe when I've been out a bit, and whether it's with sports or with work. Um, and of course, I love them so much and my time with them. But it also comes with they're not night and day; they're on a 3 hour feeding clock, and that's just then. And it's not just one newborn. There's two of them. So a lot of my time is and it's winter, so you're not maybe as easily going outside as much. Is a bit of this cabin fever type feel slightly, and so and then even at times when you're not sitting and feeding, people are excited to come and meet the twins, and so
Yeah.
it's sitting and visiting, and it's like what has helped me. I feel like my postpartum, the harder part of it has been just having to be so sedentary to some degree. Also, though, with the birth of the twins came, it was a double vaginal birth,
Okay.
and that led into third degree tearing. And and so at the hospital, and with all this that I'm just learning as I'm going through, I know doing the debrief after the birth of the twins of the birth and why they had to use certain things like a vacuum and that sort of thing. They explained to me that there was, of course, the third degree tearing, stitching needing to be done, and me asking like, oh, three, or third degree, is that like out of 10? Or they're like, and they explained right away that no, that's like 3 out of 4. So it was a pretty intense labor, and we can chat about that if you'd like. And
Yeah, if you want to
so
tune
then
into that.
the recovery of that, what had helped me, not just with like the postpartum hormone emotional part, and but was also the physical part, and actually getting up off off of my butt every once in a while and moving around and being active again, has helped me feel like I could feel the recovery for me happening. Um, so much easily and so much better.
Yeah.
The more mobile I could be, I found the better I felt.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would like to get into some of the like prenatal and postnatal recovery and fitness for you. But if you, I don't know, do you want to dive into your birth story, like the a little
Totally.
bit, whatever you feel comfortable talking about? I mean, we can go as in detail
So,
as
like,
you want, or
totally. I remember though, like, so with it being as I got to be, so with, I mentioned before twins or multiple, so two or more. For a multiples pregnancy, they don't let you go as far as 40 weeks. You're expected to go some twin specialists, and you have to see a twin specialist. Um, they'll let you go either 37 or 38 weeks. But also, once you get into a multiples pregnancy, you're right away then put into the category of a high risk pregnancy because you're prone to going into labor early. Um, it's not uncommon for twins, like two or more, to come as early as 30 weeks or 31 weeks. So you're more so prone to have preemie babies. And so here in Revelstoke, they don't actually deliver twins because of it being higher level risk. and the intensive care that they don't have here in Revelstoke. So we knew right away that we had to actually relocate a month before we were expected to have them to be in Vernon, be close to that area in case they do come early and on their own, to be based out of there. And so with that being said, we were thought that, there's the possibility at 30 weeks, 31 weeks that they could be here. They could come at any time. We did end up relocating to Armstrong, which is just a 10-minute drive from Vernon, the Vernon Hospital, which was where we were to have the twins. And we're waiting for them to come, thinking that they might come early, but we actually ended up going as far as the 37 weeks. That was how far our twin specialist wanted to go with the twins, and we had an ultrasound just a few days before showing that they're actually both a good size, that they're both growing fine, they look good. We're at 37 weeks. We can go to 38 weeks if you want. And I asked if there was a benefit to going further, to go 38 weeks, and he actually said no. If you actually go past 38 weeks, you actually increase your chances of having a stillborn. So I felt like, here's the biggest no-brainer of my life, to let's go ahead and have, induced labor. Then it's basically, what we were looking at then having to do, because I was still carrying the twins. We weren't going into any early labor. So he said, yeah, we can absolutely start inducing labor. And because it's your first pregnancy, this could actually take a few days. There are times when we are inducing labor and it actually doesn't make it happen right away. It may take a couple days, and then it may drop off and really not happen, and we actually send you home, and then you come back again and we try again, and that could be then putting us into the 38th week. So we're 100%, let's go ahead. And I was feeling very much like I was excited to have them by that point, where there was just so much space you feel like you could give for these growing babies. I was feeling quite large. My back was getting a bit sore. Just all the uncomfortable pregnancy things that you would expect to experience by that point already, and with the two of them. And what I knew what I was carrying was probably just over 10 pounds of baby, let alone, the placentas for them, and the amniotic fluid and all the extra blood that you carry when you're pregnant. When you're pregnant with one, they call it a singleton. But near the end or so, by the third trimester, you're carrying something like 9 extra pints of blood. And with multiples, it can be up to 12. So little things like even just that can make you feel like lots, or then you'll feel, what is the word? That, though, with the blood is something that can make you feel out of balance. And so by that point, and him saying yeah, we can totally go ahead and induce labor, I was very excited to move forward with that. So we went in on a Wednesday, and they started to induce labor, and what they had done was put a catheter up into the cervix to further dilate it from 1 centimeter to 3 centimeters. And my body actually started contracting. I wasn't experiencing, from what I thought, I wasn't experiencing any contractions, but I was noticing a pretty intense, some back pain. And what that was actually back labor. And I know back labor to be a thing, but I also know it to be not as common. And I'm thinking, these twins are getting so heavy, I'm having this back pain, and it was actually early labor. It was back labor that I was experiencing. But when they inserted this catheter and to further dilate the cervix, it would actually cause contractions to happen not in the back, but more so near the front, where it's more so common to be experiencing labor in that. And right away, the catheter was out. So we're there at the hospital, 3 centimeters dilated. It, from what I could tell, and they're asking me if I'm having contractions, I'm telling them no. But I actually was having contractions over my back, having back labor. And so that was on a Wednesday, and then the next day the catheter's out, and we're kind of waiting to see how labor might progress. And I was noticing increased back pain. And we were in our room, and I'm looking over at Olaf, my boyfriend, and I'm saying, I can't sit in here. I got to get up and move around. I can't just sit here and feel this back pain. And so we were actually doing the stairs at the hospital. Of course, there's the elevator, but we're in the stairwell, and he counted something like 20 flights of stairs, and he's like, yes, Jesus Christ. He's like, can we go back? Can we go back to the room, or should we take the elevator from here? Because I'm hobbling up the stairs, kind of in pain, having this back labor. And I'm telling him, no, I can't stop, or I need to keep moving. It was just, once you stop or you sit still, for me, then I could really feel it compounding. I could really feel that more intense pain happening. So here we are doing these flights of stairs, and Olaf is rolling his eyes, and his hands are behind me as I'm going up and down. And women, also 2 people on the stairwell, are looking at me, massive, pregnant, and in pain, and what's going on? And so finally we went back to our room near the end of the day on Thursday from doing another flight of stairs. And then we went down to sleep, and then I was up at 2:00, and the twins were born on that Friday. But I woke up at 2 a.m. on Friday, and it was because my back was just, for me, it woke me up, and it was just so intense for me. Then by 2 o'clock that I woke up, and every time I move or I sit up, Olaf's like jumping up, like, "Are you okay?" Or what's going on? Or he's excited to see and to help as much as he can. And I said to him, "Oh, I don't know, maybe I need to change hips or something. Because it's recommended that you don't actually spend a lot of time on your back when you're pregnant, so it's better for you to sleep on your side, and of course you're not sleeping on your stomach." So I'm like, "Oh, maybe I just need to change hips or something." And I got up maybe just to walk around a bit, use the bathroom, come back. And then I was up half an hour later, and I told him, "No, start the tub. I think something's happening here." It was just getting to feel the pressure started to really become intense for me. And in the Vernon Hospital on the maternity floor, they have each labor and delivery room has its own bathroom, and they have a tub in there, a shower. So it was really nice for us to utilize that. And so we sat in the tub for a bit. He was beside me, and that helped. Like, I relaxed for a bit, but once I got out of the tub, it was like, "No, call the nurse. I think something's happening." It was maybe 3:30 in the morning, and it was from then on we knew we were up for the day. And so they came in, they hooked up heart rate monitors to each of the twins, a contraction monitor, and that's when you could see contractions happening. And it was explained that these are happening in your back. You're actually having back labor. And it's like, "Oh, I've heard of this." And it's like it's not so much what you want, but it's where we were at. So we're there in the room and having this conversation with the nurse, of course, that we had with us at the time. And anesthesia and the epidural couldn't be brought to us to 7 a.m. The anesthesiologist couldn't be there, wasn't starting his shift until 7 a.m. So I was with pretty intense back labor for maybe 4.5 hours before he came in. And by that point, I'm like, "Oh, I hope I can sit still for this guy to put this needle and catheter into my back." But we got through that, and right away, it was an epidural. It helped so much. I was able to relax. We could monitor the twins, their heart rate, my contractions. You could see them going up, and of course the epidural was working its magic, and I could finally relax for a bit. But I couldn't eat anything just in case if I did have to have a C-section. So for me, that was, we were up at 2 and left with the epidural, and to watch and see how labor was progressing. And what you're waiting for is for your early labor to become active labor, and then from there your cervix to further dilate. And for me, it was 3 or so centimeters, and then you need it to get to that 10 centimeters. Mm-hmm. So the doctor came in, had a look at a few things, and said, "I'll be back around 2 o'clock. That was maybe at 10 o'clock, so she was going to come back after 4 hours. So she leaves and comes back and found that we were like 9.5 centimeters dilated. Like, this was happening. This, we're here, this is going on. And with twins right away, or multiples, 2 or more, they have you actually deliver in the OR just in case if something is to happen or to go somewhat sideways. And what they really, it's not like I want to say you don't have a choice, but it's very much recommended that you do have an epidural in case if they do need to jump into a surgery. So once the first one comes out, it then creates or allows so much more space for the other one to be able to move. And with the contractions happening, it is actually a really active space, and the baby can tip on its side or totally flip right around, be in the breech position, or if the heart rate drastically drops for the second one or the third one, however many you're carrying, then they will need to just go in and take it out. And so I don't want to say like you have absolutely no choice, but right from the beginning when you find out you're having multiples, they are like explaining the epidural and why it is so important for that to be a part of the delivery. Yeah. And I'm in the air. I'm like, whatever you need to do. I didn't have a birth plan. I didn't have anything so concrete in my mind in such a way that it had to be. I said to him, if you need to blast this open or whatever you got to do, you do it. Make sure that we're all doing, it's your, that's your level of expertise, and I'm here. We're all here to just get through this happy, healthy, and great. So I was like, I wasn't by any means arguing him at all, but I felt like, he was on the defense about it, like as if there were maybe some women in the past who were very much like, I want an all-natural birth that has nothing to do with the epidural, and I can appreciate that. But from where he's coming from, that it's like, I will then need to operate on you with absolutely no anesthesia if it gets to be that degree, right? And so if you were to just have one, if we were just having one, we would have stayed in that room that we were in, and they deliver babies there. But because we're having more, they actually moved us down to the OR. Each twin had their own team of nurses. I had my own team, a nurse. I had anesthesia in there, and I don't know what it was for me this season, but since the start of my pregnancy, through the pregnancy, the labor and delivery, I had so many students. I think we were in the OR, and there was like an audience of people on the other side of me with my legs in the air and these boots, and it was that again. I'm like the whole time. I'm like, sure, come on, with students, whether it's going to a prenatal appointment, and we've got a student today, or we've got a rep in, if you don't mind her joining or him joining. And I'm like, oh, sure, yeah, I don't mind. And simple prenatal, and through some ultrasounds. Yep, here's more students. We get into the OR, and I'm like, wow, like there is this audience of people, but you get to a point where there's no fucks given. You're just like, do it, man. We've got to do what we need to do, and you just get into a zone that's like, tell me, and we've got to make this happen. You don't care. Yeah. So anyways, we're in the OR, and we moved it down from our room into the OR. And this doctor in particular was really excited about almost like getting these twins out so fast. When we were just before moving down to the OR, she was explaining about like, we may be wanting to use forceps or a vacuum here right away. We may be meeting your first daughter within the half hour. And our nurse actually looked at her and was like, we're not even in the OR yet. Or, it was a bit of a surprise to some of the other nurses in the room that this doctor was wanting to progress labor so fast. So we made our way down to the OR, and one of the nurses explained to me, she says, you can ask for another half an hour to push. You don't have to. And I was doing some pushing. Then, we get into the OR, and you're really focused on then when you're having a contraction to push and do what you can to get the baby to move down, and then of course out. And so what ended up happening was we did request more time, but the baby was actually face up. They call it sunny side up. Mm. And so what happens then is that the diameter of the head is actually then the biggest. And so as it moves down, it was, with the diameter of the head being the biggest, it was actually getting stuck. So they did end up needing to use a vacuum on her, do some cutting, and then use the vacuum to get her out. And it was actually 3 attempts with the vacuum to get her out. And I've heard of a vacuum before, but nobody has actually explained how intense it actually is. I actually felt like they were going to pull me off the table. It was, and from what Olaf could see, they had both their hands on this vacuum and pulling as hard as they could to the point where their hands were shaking to get the baby out. Wow. So that, it was, and nobody, says labor or, birth, to be this cakewalk or, this, but maybe for some I've actually heard, for those especially who are having their second or third child, it can be that much smoother. But finally, the first one was out, and then the heart rate dropped to the second one. And when you do have multiples, they do need to reach up inside to feel for the second one to see if it has flipped totally around on its side. So that in itself, after having a baby, was pretty intense, even with an epidural. And then they did end up using the vacuum again to get Emma out. And that wasn't as intense, as Olivia had already paved the way for the most part. But then the second Emma was born, and maybe half an hour after Olivia had come, because after Olivia had come out, my contractions totally stopped. And so they were, I was hooked up to an IV, and you're given something called oxytocin that continues to induce labor. And so they just kept upping that, waiting and wanting to see if contractions would then come back. And they were humming and hawing about maybe also then having to do a C-section to get the second baby out. So after giving birth to one, and then to hear and I might have to have a C-section, it's like, I'm like, oh my gosh, let's really try to do what we can to get this second baby out. So they're upping the oxytocin, and the contractions did come back to some degree, and they were able to get a hold of her with the vacuum and to get her out. And so what ended up happening was third-degree tearing, and then they had to do what they needed to, the stitching for me, for healing and that. And I'm not going to say that it was, the most intense, but after speaking to some nurses who were we had not the same nurse the whole time we were there. They were on a rotation every 12 hours, and they would read the debrief of the birth. It was they were kind of shocked in that I was even sitting, or it was quite a bit. But I feel like with each week after the twins were born, I was substantially feeling better. And so part of what I was saying before, some of the hardest things that I had experienced after having the twins a bit was, you're there feeding for both. but was having to, sit still maybe here and there. Getting up and moving around actually did help me with some of the healing, not just mentally with postpartum, but physically with my recovery after a double vaginal birth.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that's like, yeah, such a beautiful story, but obviously, yeah, a bit intense. I like all labor, it's got everyone's so different, but do you find you were nervous at all going up to labor? Like some people, their anxiety can kick in, some people, I don't know if it kicks in at all or until like, did you have any issues with anxiety or being nervous about it?
I, I want to say the nerves that I felt around that were just around wanting to make sure everybody was okay, that they were okay after. I knew you're conditioned that labor and delivery isn't going to be easy. You're going to be. I knew that I would be in the best place, and that everyone's trained up, in their field, and that I felt really taken care of right from the start of our pregnancy. And also in my mind, I knew that we were most likely going to have the epidural. The only event that would prevent us from having that epidural would have been if I went into labor so fast. And it was some women, when they go into labor, when they're having a baby, it's like right now. It's like labor is happening. And
Yeah.
then there are some women where it's like, oh, it actually takes not just multiple hours, but multiple days. So I was pretty sure, not sure maybe what would be my experience after going into labor if I was going to have one so fast. It's most likely not. If it's your first child, it's going to take some time. But I feel like my nerves mostly came from just wanting like to see and make sure that everyone's okay. You're looking forward to this for the 8 or 9 months that you're carrying, and you unfortunately you hear some things to go one way and another.
Yeah.
There's a part of me that even after you find out you're pregnant, I don't want to say you don't care about yourself at all, but all of my focus and worry just went to making sure that they were okay. So it's like whatever you got to do, just you know, I'm on board, or
Yeah.
whatever it needs to be. I didn't find nerves for pain to be an issue for me. I know I was getting some messages like, "Oh, Kath, it's getting to be the end of November. You're getting nervous," and it's more excitement. And yeah, I guess it's something you think about maybe as you're growing up, like having a family. When you find out you're pregnant and you're imagining it for yourself, and I guess it's just that like heartbeat right away when you think about seeing your child for the first time. That's so
Yeah.
exciting. You're kind of really you're ready for that moment.
Anticipating it. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
don't have the capacity to think about the negatives when you're just so excited, maybe.
Hmm.
So how did you guys come up with the names Olivia and Emma?
I found like so super like not original, super like when I'm that type of person. I'll just
Yeah, like they're a very
yeah,
traditional
you've totally
female
heard that
name.
name
Yeah.
before. Like in
Yeah.
terms of like these ones, like it's something that's like, oh, even if you were to go to a playground during recess, you'd probably pick out a couple Emmas,
Yeah.
or like it's not a totally uncommon name. And I'm the type of person that it's like if everyone's doing something, I would rather do something else, or So, but with these names, I remember the first weekend that we knew we were pregnant. We just started playing around with names a little bit, talking about it, and we saw the name Olivia, and it just I don't know, it kind of just stuck. It wasn't something that was like, oh, totally, yes. Like, it's maybe like making a little bit of a list of names. And there was like, as we're looking at a few, none were really coming to mind so much. But as we're looking at a few, that one did stand out. So I did write that one down. And then, but it wasn't like super concrete or nothing. And then I remember he went downstairs to have a shower and came back up. And while he was downstairs having a shower, I thought of the name Emma, or it came to mind because I remember that being a name I liked so much when I was a kid growing up.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, he came up from the shower and I mentioned him, like, oh, a name that I always liked when I was a kid is Emma. And he's like, oh, I thought of that name when I was in the shower. So it was just another name
Oh,
that we
that's
threw on
cute.
the list. And then, so we did that. There was those two girls' names on the list. And we had maybe one boy name. And that was that was just the start. Like, there was nothing that made us feel like we were in a rush to have to figure it out, especially at that point. We're only 7 weeks pregnant. And then we went for our ultrasound and found out we were having twins, and we were like, "Holy shit!" So it was like we had the two girls' names and a boy name, and if we were just having one, I knew I wanted to just leave it be a surprise, not find out the gender of the baby.
Oh, okay.
But after finding, oh, we're pregnant, surprise! Oh, we're having twins, surprise! I'm like, I feel like I want to know. I want to know what the gender of the baby is. Like I've had, like I'm. There's the shock of my life. We're having twins. I feel like it's one of those things that you're aware of. Twins or multiples, but you never think, oh, for yourself, that's going to happen
Yeah.
to me. And then I'm sitting there like, oh shit, twins. And so we left the hospital, and we were going to go out for like a little celebratory lunch or dinner or something like that. And as we're on our way from the hospital, I said, I'm like, I think I want to find out what the gender of the twins are. So we didn't then go further into thinking about names until we found out what the genders were. And then when we found out we were having two girls, we were sitting and looking at these two names, Liv and Emma, Olivia and Emma. And I do really appreciate the name Liv too, just shortened up. It just felt like it stuck. Like, trying to think of anything else, it was just like an easy no. I thought of the middle name Lynn for Olivia Lynn, and Jean is Emma Jean. She's named after Olaf's grandmother.
Oh.
And they were just, I don't know, it was like it was said, it was simple. It's funny how quick and easy the names came up, but once they were there, it was just, it felt like it fit or it was right, and that was it.
Aw. Well, I really like them. They're beautiful names, so.
Thank you.
Do you want to get into a little bit of your fitness and health? So I just wanted to ask a few questions about your fitness and health before getting pregnant, because obviously you're pretty athletic, and I would say there's probably a lot of correlation with your postnatal recovery from how you were before, but also want to know if there's anything that you would have done differently or anything that you would say really worked for you from where you were at coming into pregnancy.
For me, before I found out I was pregnant, I was actually not super reliant on my sports lifestyle to keep fit, and I was really involved with riding regularly, and I wouldn't want to push then for myself exercise too much, and that it was then fatiguing myself for riding. But what I would really like to do, I find, for the type of sports that I'm really into, whether that's snowbiking or dirt biking, or even then being on the tools, that's a lot of tension strength. And so I found myself, I would even get comments about being, I don't want to say super jacked or pretty fit, especially in the shoulders, arms, and that. But it's going to come with riding as much as I do, and being on the tools. It's a lot of tension strength. So what I would try to do while I was not riding or on the tools was actually more of aerobic type of exercise, whether that would be running or whether it be not super fast movement with lighter weights, but just movement that felt more easy, more freeing, and stretching, so that I was trying to get a balance and not fatiguing anything too much, or working my legs a bit more. If it's of course, because I'm on a bike primarily, that isn't a pedal bike, I should say. Mm-hmm. So weighted things whether it be with weights, it'd be mostly lower body focused to kind of counter and balance all that tension strength that's in the upper body for riding. Mm-hmm. I found with like I said, dirt biking or snow biking, bigger power tools, being an electrician can bring a lot of that, or even just with bigger cables that I've been working with. So anytime that it came to mind for me to, if I'm not riding that day, not working, I'm going to use this time to maybe go for a 10K run, and that would feel really good. That just felt really good in the body to do something different, or I'm slightly guilty for not stretching as much as I know I probably could and should. I'm just such a next goer and doer, but totally aware of. And then maybe it's good every once in a while you find that it's you hit that wall in a sense where it's I could be stretching more. I should. Yeah. Could we'll all always have something maybe, but.
How often were you riding the snow bike when you're in a season? How many times a week are you out riding?
I would say every weekend.
Yeah.
Absolutely every weekend, both days, Saturday, Sunday. And I would say I'd probably move myself to working, or let's say on the tool, working part-time, and it would really vary if it's wow, we're hitting a lot of nice weather, bluebird days, a lot of friends are coming into town. It'd probably be 2 to 3 times during the week. Okay. If it was, let's say, oh, it's pretty quiet, it hasn't snowed a whole bunch, this is what's going on with work, I can really focus my time on that more so and just blast in some more work days. I would say 2 to, if it was maybe quieter in terms of the season wasn't producing as much snow at the time, 1 to 2 days during the week, absolutely that weekend. So before, or as much as 3 to 4 days during the week and the weekend. So almost a lot of the week, or most of the week, half the week or so. So the winter seasons, I would say January, February, half of March would be a lot of it would be riding.
Yeah. And you're able to kind of balance that with your work, where you're kind of working more during the summer months and 100%. Able to take a little more time off during the winter.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's nice. So, as far as going during your pregnancy, how much did your fitness routine change? I mean, obviously the snow biking, but like, at what point did you stop feeling like you could be as active, or like, did you have a moment? I mean, the snow biking's not happening during the summer, but even dirt biking or anything else, was there a moment when you're like, I have to give up on
Hmm.
those sports and focus on other things?
I found it. Well, we found out that we were pregnant right near the end of snow bike season. So for me at that time, there'll always be a bit of a not like a lull or anything like that. I do appreciate spring riding. I'll go, but once I get to the point of like let's say April or May, I'm happy to just get back onto the tools, give riding a little bit of a break. That's kind of my season, especially after going quite hard to maybe also be promoting for snow check season through the month of March. Once April hits, and especially with it being this last season that I just had, snow check for Yeti Snowmax, the filming for that movie. Once I got to April, and even if I wasn't pregnant at that time, I would have been happy to just give the riding a break. So the riding then I was happy to give that a break. And not long after finding out I was pregnant, I went straight into having that 5 weeks of morning sickness. So for me, it's almost like it wasn't a thought to be like, oh, I need exercise. Like I know there was a few times I did push myself to get out of the house and go for a walk. But if you can think of maybe the most intense hangover that you had where you're like, I think I'm going to throw up, it was 5 weeks of that. So it wasn't like, oh, I need to, like, I wasn't thinking so much about my exercise as much as it just was like, oh, Cass, just go check the mail. Go check the
Yeah.
mail, take the scenic route, park your truck over here, and just, it was really just that. It felt like a pretty intense 5 week hangover for myself. And then coming, as I could feel that start to lighten up, I was wanting to, I was wanting to get back to work because I'd actually would have been short hours for maternity leave as well as like just to get out and to keep busy. I can't, even if it was just exercise then to keep me busy, that maybe wouldn't be enough. And also, all of a sudden we're pregnant and we're having two babies. It's like, oh yeah, I can maybe get back to work as much as I can to try to prepare for that too, in a bit of a sense. But for me, I found I experienced a certain level of fatigue when you're pregnant. Your body is preparing itself for growing a baby, especially in the first few months. You have this level of fatigue that's I was almost shocked at how much I wanted, not just could sleep, but wanted to sleep. It was,
Yeah. Was
after
that
waking up.
sorry, was that discouraging by any means? Like feeling like when you're going from being such an active person to all these changes happening, did you feel discouraged at all, or um, like fearful that you wouldn't get that energy back?
I felt as though a lot of what I was reading, even in those first few days, was explaining it all. Like a lot of what I was feeling to be what I had read to expect or to feel. And even just in the
Hmm.
first few days after finding out I was pregnant and having that pregnancy confirmation and saying that, oh, I'm actually starting to feel quite sick, and them explain, and especially after finding out I'm pregnant with twins. It's actually a hormone called progesterone that makes you really sick or can make you sick if you. Most women experience morning sickness in the first trimester. That's your body producing a lot of that hormone to prepare your body to then grow a baby in the second and third trimester. And with that just comes that crazy change, a certain an extreme level of fatigue. Your body is
Hmm.
doing so much, and for me, with experiencing that and knowing that there was a lot that we had to prepare for, my focus was on getting ourselves ready to have this family, and it was really all I could to just get out for a few of those walks and be present with that and do
Yeah.
that and hope. You hear some women say like, oh, it gets better once you get to the 11th or 12th week. I swear, just hang in there. And so it's like, oh, okay. And so you're hoping that like, yes, I'm going to come out of this and it is going to get better. And you're like, for me, I'm just really where I'm at is I where I have focused my energy. Thinking too far ahead for me just felt like it was just I felt so unsure. Like this was something that had come
Yeah.
up that I wasn't planning and preparing for. And what I was experiencing really just in that moment was really where my focus was. And so what actually helped for me, the month of May here in Revelstoke was actually really, really rainy. There was the first week where I was really sick. The first week of May was actually really nice, and I could hear people outside loading up their dirt bikes and getting ready to go dirt bike camping. And I'm like, do I have to hear this right now? Just because it is like, like I do experience cabin fever in a bit of a
Yeah.
sense, and you could tell me I have ADD without me. Like I'm aware. Like I feel like I am that type. I like to be busy, and that sort of thing. But then after that, I feel like the early summer, late spring was quite rainy in Revelstoke, and that something about that helps you to just relax and feel less guilty about having a down day. But it was like for the rest of May, it's pretty rainy, pretty chill, and I'm like, oh, okay, we're gonna get through this. It's gonna be fun. And by mid-June, I was back to work, and I actually felt really good. I felt like myself almost pre-pregnancy pretty well. A lot of what I experienced that might have been weird or different for myself was vertigo, and that comes from carrying then more fluid in the body, that much more blood. And I found myself, of course, just easily distracted. I'd go for my day of work, and with carrying and with two, it just that would be my day. I feel like I was actually on to working on these job sites in Revelstoke that were for these multi-million-dollar homes. So these would be massive job sites with bigger ladders, bigger flights of stairs, drills, and that. I found like work for me then became my workout. But work as a residential electrician is all day on your feet. You're on the go. You're drilling. You're pulling wire. You're moving ladders and material. For me, that was all I could really do in the day. I felt good, and like it felt good to get out of the house in the morning. I was out for the day, but by the time I came around to that end of that 8 hours, that was all that I had that I could give, and I felt good with that. I could tell that my body was tired, and you just once you start to experience that fatigue, I didn't feel a need for wanting to have to continue to push it. I did feel on weekends I would like to try and get out, and it maybe be like a paddleboard thing, something easy. And when it came around to then it being when my morning sickness had finally came up, really, or I came out from that, and I was back to work, and then, the thought of maybe dirt biking would be something that I could maybe do. It for me felt like a bit of an easy no because of that feeling of imbalance. Mm-hmm. And then what you don't want to happen is, of course, crash. And I feel like when I think about crashing, that is when I crash. Yeah. If I'm when I'm just kind of like fearless and in the zone and excited and whatever, that's when I kind of surprise myself at how good how much better I can ride that day. But if I'm feeling like I'm just having a day where I'm feeling off, a bit timid, or like if something's a little bit, the last few rides maybe weren't the best, and then it gets you thinking about crashing, that's when I'll crash. And of course, this is a time when you don't want that to happen for obvious reasons. I just felt it to be an easy no. I don't know if I was pregnant during, let's say, the winter months, snowbiking, I feel like I'll just be honest, I feel like I maybe, not to a certain degree, would maybe go out for a few rides, as I do feel more confident. I do find it easy to find less consequence places to ride, where if I was to come off the bike or anything like that, I find my confidence on a snow bike is higher than it is when I'm on a dirt bike. Yeah. And if I was to go to a meadow and get some fresh air and play around and maybe pop off a few fun snow pillows and that sort of thing, that kind of day for me is different from even just the simplest, like even a washout on a dirt bike could be wrong spot, wrong, not worth it in my mind. Yeah. So it was easy for me to write off riding for the summer. Okay. As that was the time I was pregnant. But I think for myself, to put myself in that, through the winter months, I probably would have, been gotten out, month 4, 5, 6 before you get to be, maybe you can't even do up your snowsuit anymore. I probably would have, gone up and just like, hey, whatever, let's ride up to the cabin or to this meadow over here, get some fresh air. That's good for you, I find, in pregnancy. It was good for me. It was good for me to get up and and be moving and to do. I could feel that within myself. I know as much as though you could feel some fatigue and there was all the opinions of you need to rest or relax or can I do this for you? It was like, oh, no, I feel really good and I want to move. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's maybe one of the things that I'm more surprised about you is that being the person that you are, you didn't ride during this summer, and so it's like kind of nice to see that even someone like yourself took that time to just listen to your body and what it needed. So are you like right now, so let's say going after you've had the babies and you've been getting back into life a little bit, what has your fitness journey been like and what are your fitness goals going forward?
I found myself right away excited to just do what I could do to just get my body sweating again or moving in a way that wasn't too hard on, of course, coming out of that pretty intense labor that had the 3rd degree tearing. that sort of thing. I found it easy to. I have a bit of a gym in my basement. Getting on the treadmill, and previous to being, getting pregnant and pregnancy, I found running to actually be something I really enjoyed, just for endurance, heart rate up. For me, a runner's high is a real thing. But just getting on the treadmill, putting the incline up, and doing more of a power walk, listening to music that I used to listen to before I was pregnant to kind of get me pumped back up, and keeping then it made me feel like myself again, because that's who I was before I was pregnant. And it brought me back to, if I, once I got moving again and put the weights back in my hands and listened to the music that I listened to before I was pregnant, I'm like, there I am. And you just feel, any sort of lull, or, any part of your life that has slowed down because of, pregnancy and then looking after newborns, to sort of diminish, and, a bit of your spark come back. And, it's not like, I'm finding myself again, but it's like, there I am. Like, I found moving again, felt really good. And with each week I physically felt better. The more I moved, the better I knew I felt. And then the better attitude, though, that I also had. Then coming back up and looking after the twins and keeping up with the 3-hour feed cycle and schedule that we're on. Now, with each week, and as I'm feeling better, I'm not running again, as that kind of intense impact, the up and down and continuous movement, can pull in such ways that aren't great for me right now. Though I did go to a physio here. The twins were 6 weeks on Friday, and that's when they recommend that you go and see, go to physio. And I went in and actually got a really, really good review, a 4 out of 5 in terms of strength, with no prelapse. So she's like, I encourage you to go snowbiking so that we can have a chat and see how things go and how things feel. She's like, you're kind of like a freak. I wouldn't have even guessed that you were carrying twins 6 weeks ago. So it's like with everyone being different, and, maybe because I was so active before pregnancy, and because power sports can be, I want to say my body's pretty conditioned to repairing itself. I've had a few crashes in my day. I've, pushed myself pretty hard, riding just really big days where you're pushing your body, or, you do have the odd crash. That's, my body, I found, is no stranger to having to recover itself. So I found that experience in my past maybe has helped me for this recovery that I'm going through right now. And that chat and conversation that I had with physio, and her saying, like, this is where we're at and how things are looking. Yeah, there's going to maybe be opinion from one person to the next, whether you could be or should be riding. And it's no, like, gold medal or trophy if you're already riding, or you have been riding, or you're already riding after having a baby, or it's so frowned upon if it's something that you feel like you need to just bring, to bring yourself back and feel mentally better. Yeah. I found for me, like I've been saying, things like as simple as the music. If I, even get in my truck and go grab a couple groceries and check the mail, I'll just blast the shit out of the tunes in my truck and just feel, alive again, in the sense that it's like, to go ride, or feel a bit of how I did before I got so far along in pregnancy, where it was like that was just had to be my main focus, right? Or so much of my world. So now with like preparing to maybe ride within the next couple of weeks, maybe 2 to 3 weeks from now, I'm just slowly adding on load, or keeping up with the day-to-day to feel how my strength is, whether it's maintaining or improving. But then also knowing too, when I go, I'm going to be with people that I love and trust, and it can be as easy as just riding up to the cabin, or feel good, I'm going to go and take off into this zone or this area. And it's really just as you go and move through things, and how you feel. I find, and for me, just trying a few things, whether that's like with the weights, the treadmill, some body weight stuff. Yeah. And feeling progression, and almost surprising that I'm actually feeling really good, that I don't feel a reason to hold back so much. Other than, of course, like my time with the twins is number one, but for myself and for my recovery postpartum, mentally and physically, movement has been, I would say, the answer for me.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I think it's kind of like, can be as simple as you want it, or as broad and vigorous as you want. Like, movement is it's just like starting very simple, and I think that's a really good thing to suggest for recovery in anything. So do we want to go into a little bit of mom life and sports balance? I did have one question actually that I should ask, because someone did ask me to ask you this. So it's so this goes back to, first of all, I had someone else ask me this a while ago, and it was, "What's up with the banana?"
That's you know what? As simple as me being. This is it. It's as simple as this. I was out on a ride. I think it was however many years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, when I first started enduro riding since moving to BC, and it wasn't like anything for anyone other than myself. You pack snacks when you go for a ride. I packed a banana, and I made a mistake of packing the banana inside of my backpack, and what happens, of course, it exploded inside, and I'm like, oh, and I got this banana inside my pack. I've got it all over my water. Camelback, whatever, all over my stuff. And I'm peeling this banana apart out of my backpack, and then when I pull it out, I got this banana peel, and I'm making the joke about throwing it on the trail and someone slipping on it, and it, whatever, it being like kind of like a Donkey Kong thing, or just making a joke of the fact that, like, kind of poking fun at myself, like, oh shit, I put this banana in my bag, and and then whatever, and then extending the joke to being something that's like, oh, slipping on a banana peel or something like that, because we're slipping. I think it was a wet day too, and like, we were slipping on all these rocks, but now here's this other thing. It's this banana peel, and so it was really something that I wasn't trying to push or to go in, just with goofing around, I guess mostly, and so then from there, I think the next ride I ended up going out with the same group of friends, and I had stuck it on the exterior of my backpack, like hanging out funny out the side or whatever, and it was just something that everyone continued to laugh about, and I just then thought it to be funny to like be bringing up, so that my friends that I was riding with at the time of when this whole banana peel and it exploding in my backpack could see that it was there, almost like not pointing it out or like mentioning any names, but it's just there, and it just stuck and it stayed, and then it became this joke that was broader than that group of friends that I was with that day that the banana exploded in my backpack, and being kind of silly, whether using it as a gun or sticking it in my helmet, and not really pointing it out so much, but it's there, and it's always there, and it just got to a point where it's like people were bringing me bananas in a parking lot, or here's a banana keychain, or you'd send or I thought of you, and here's a video, and oh, there's a banana, or something like that. So it just happened, in itself. It was like from a simple joke to
became like a little became a symbol of who you are.
Just goofing around. I guess also it breaks up the seriousness of like not being too serious with anything or all of it. Just trying to always just having fun, I guess, mostly.
Yeah, that was cute. And so someone just asked me how many bananas you were eating when you had the twins.
I feel like that's a staple thing in this house between you and my boyfriend. It always sort of has been, and that's like when you see the bananas going down, it's like, oh, we got to go grocery shopping soon because the banana bundle is getting low. So what else do we need? Because we got to go and get more bananas. It's something I've always liked. I've always eaten quite healthy. It's not the easiest. Like I can say, it's not the easiest thing to pack around, like an apple that lasts so long, and it's so tough. But it's always something that I've had, and absolutely I was eating bananas regularly throughout the pregnancy with the twins, pre-pregnancy, throughout the pregnancy, and I'm sure we'll be, some of their first foods.
So we'll be seeing more bananas. We'll definitely be seeing more bananas. That's a good tip though, because like I've definitely packed bananas, and now I'm like, okay, maybe that's not the best idea. If it's going to explode in my bag.
It is a great snack. I love them, and it's all the carbs. And I am I'm not afraid of carbs or anything like that. Whether it's bananas or having a beer after, or a ride, or whatever it is. But it's tough.
Yeah. So, well, it's a great simple like quick sugar too when you're riding. But maybe we'll put the banana in a bag in the bag.
Floating.
All right, so so what do you think, let's see, I've got a couple questions here. What time are we at? We got about 15 minutes left of this call before it probably will cut us off, so we'll see if we can wrap some of these up. So are you finding, let's see here. I wanted to ask you this one. Has becoming a mom affected like your fearlessness and your attitude towards snowbiking and adrenaline sports? Like, has it put a sort of a like governor on you? Or, I mean, you haven't actually gone back into it yet, but do you feel like it's changed your fearlessness?
I feel like when I think about it, when I think about going out to ride, and let's say not, because I know the first few rides I'm going to be chill because of my recovery, and that's not going to last forever. Like, that's not my recovery from having the twins isn't going to be the rest of my snowbiking. But certainly maybe the first week or two or the first few rides, So disregarding taking it easy for that reason, when I think about snowbiking, I don't think about, I think about it the way it was before. Still, like it's still in my mind like that. Still wanting to get after the zones and the way of riding that I've always liked. Now, with that being said, I can, previous to this chat and you asking me this, I've thought back to a time when I was talking about having kids with my friend Julianne Chapman. We were talking about kids in general, and I think somebody we knew had just had a baby. That's what got us onto that topic. And then she was just relating to it as well and talking about her riding before having her son and what riding is for her after having her son. And what her point was is that she needs to get home at the end of each day. It's, she's got to be somewhere for somebody, and that's number one. And when I think about that, it's like, that is absolutely the first, like that is, there's so much, that's all the truth. There's so much truth to that. And I can totally, and even then when someone who hadn't yet had children at the time, was like 100%. Can see that, appreciate that, and everything. And now when I think about riding, it's like I think about it, and it's almost like remembering it as to what it was. And I think for me, getting back into it for this season, it'll be, I feel like it will go that way. Right now, as I prepare for the season already, there are times when I'm putting energy into rewrapping my bike for the season or taking a few calls to get the bike lined up for the new 2025 year. It's nice to maybe break up the day and have some of those little projects, but I do feel some guilt towards taking time for myself. And that kind of surprised me, taking time for myself to look after something or to take care of that isn't a massive priority. It's nice. And my mental health is a priority, and I find things like sports, whether working out or sports, really does help my mental health, and makes me feel good and feel better, and that in turn is good for the twins. But I do feel guilt when I'm taking the time to do something that's other than for them, or like when I'm focusing on snowbiking, that's to get ready for the season. I feel like a pull that needs to be back for them, and I do also feel a bit of guilt that's like my time spent. And I understand that and it'll come in time. Is it needs to be all for them, but also it's okay for me to ask for a bit of help and take care of some of these things. But so with that being said, I think it'll become more obvious once I get onto the bike, and I'm doing that. And I can really appreciate and agree with what my friend Julianne had to say, that it's like I need to be home every day. And already I'm just, as I'm going through this, I'm feeling a bit of guilt as I'm preparing myself to maybe get out on the bike for next month, a bit here and there. It does feel good to do that, and you can feel, a part of yourself a bit, come back again, and that feels good. But also I can feel I'm excited to get back to where I know I need to be.
Yeah. So do you have sort of an idea of what kind of a routine you'd like to get into with the twins? Like, is it with your partner? Is it with getting outside support? Do you guys have family that can help with the twins while you're working or doing your sports and activities?
I feel we do have lots of support here from Olaf's family. He's born and raised Revelstoke, and is actually one of 5. He's got 4 siblings and 1 stepbrother. They're all here, and they're all, one is in Alberta and one is in Cranbrook, but fairly close. They come visit regularly here, and happy to help. They're excited to, but also a part of me feels like twins is a lot. It's one thing maybe to ask for a sitter and like, but then I'm like, do I ask? And she's great. She's come a couple of times. Olaf's mom has come a couple of times when I did have to go to that physio appointment, and when I did have to go to the bank for them to open, some bank accounts for them and all, just little errand things. And she pops in for a couple hours, and she is great. And she's like, not like, seeming like as if it's too much, but still a part of me is like, it's okay to ask for help. But then I sit back and I'm like, twins, 2 newborn babies is a lot, especially when they're like ready to feed at the same time and all that's happening. So I feel like it's going to be feeling it out a bit as we finally step into it. We've got, and like Olaf's mom, she said, don't lose yourself. If you guys want to go riding together, myself and his stepdad Robert will be here. We can take the twins. You guys go. There's a lot of encouragement. A lot of our friends and family understand who we were before we got pregnant and had the twins, and want us to continue to still have a bit of that lifestyle and sense of ourself in our day, not in our daily routine, sorry, but still within our life. And then that's something that we're going to eventually be sharing with the twins as they get older. So not to totally lose that, and then maybe pick it back up in after 5 or 6 years when it's more manageable. They're easier to manage in that sense. But I feel like it's going to be touch and go of maybe a bit for this first month, where it feels like it's working, whether, he and I both go together and family's here, or he stays, I go. I feel like we're just in the works of figuring that out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's nice. Like, it sounds like you found a partner who's on the same sort of level as you. And I think, like, I have friends who just had babies recently in the last couple of years. They race and they go to races and they trade off the baby. And I think it's something like if you want it bad enough, I can see you can make it work. And um, I mean, I'd say partner choice is such an important part of that. And it sounds like you guys are just both on the same page of what you want out of life. So,
100%.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
really
couldn't
nice.
ask for a better person for me. Even yet before we had the twins, it was almost like we would joke about finding. I'm like, oh, I found like the male version of myself.
Yeah,
I am like just this redneck chick from Saskatchewan, small town girl, like just simple as sweet. That kind of person. Spent summers with my grandmother and really appreciated family time, and it was really just that. And then now here's this like redneck Rebby version of myself or Olaf, and he's blown me away. Um,
yeah,
and how here we are raising two girls together, and just the way he was so patient and amazing through the pregnancy, and now as we have the twins here with us, having that love and support and understanding. I think that's another big thing, is that how much he understands me and how much I need to maybe get up and move, and giving it a break in terms of like, not that it's because I don't want to be there, but I need to, it's like, oh, get out of here, go for a walk, or do your weights or a little bit, or
yeah,
go and see if so and so wants to have lunch. Just knowing and understanding me, and that anybody would need maybe a bit of that break and a bit of time. But I can
hmm
see after us having the twins how important that is, to have understanding within each other. It is something that requires a team. Support and love needs
hmm
to be there, right?
yeah. And honestly, that's almost something I'd love to chat in its own podcast. Maybe one day with you or someone else is just like that. When you do get to a point where you've kind of got a routine and you're figuring it all out, it's like what it takes to make those relationships work. I think like what kind of
Mm-hmm.
partnership and um, what what fills your cup and helps you out through that, because it's yeah, it's just like a huge factor is having that partner that's on the same page as you
Hundred
and
percent.
supporting that. So yeah, we've got about 10 minutes. I wanted to ask you, I guess, would you guys have any more children after the two?
I'll say it hasn't been much of a topic or conversation since we've had the twins. Um,
Yeah.
I feel like, and I have been asked this before, and I feel like just maybe because it hasn't been so much of a thought, I feel like then in that moment I'm trying to, um, I guess it's not something I would say no to totally. I feel like if we were to, I'd want to sooner than later, and not put too much time between, because also where we are a bit older. I'm not in my early 20s anymore. I'm 33. Um,
hmm
I think it's going to make itself obvious here within the next couple of months, and maybe if not within the next year, then probably not.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. Is there anything that you want to discuss in the last 10 minutes? I mean, we could um, talk a little bit about the riding season, like what you're expecting to go into. I could also ask you, like, what advice you would give to women who are thinking about having children and might be afraid of the changes that come with that. Um,
I
I'll
would
leave
say
it to you what you want to.
I'd love to talk about that. I feel the most, because that's something that I found I've been asked the most since finding out I was pregnant and having the twins. Um,
hmm
I feel like if I was to give advice, especially maybe to somebody who is so active, would be to do what you can to not lose yourself. Let's say your children, your family is so much a part of your life. It is you, and it of course radically changes your life forever. But not to lose yourself and who you are and what you appreciate and did before you got pregnant. Like that's something that is for you to share, maybe with your family, and it's a part of who you are, and your children may look up to you for that, and that's not to I think it isn't a loss. I feel like that shouldn't be a loss for you after you've come to this other side of starting your family. It's of course going to demand its time, and it's not going to be the same again, but you'll find your way, and I think that's something that you'll want to, like I was saying, share with them as they grow older. It's a part of who you are, and maybe who your family becomes, and what you enjoy to do together.
Yeah.
Whether that's sports or whatever it might be.
Yeah. Well, I think that's just a really important message and a beautiful message, because becoming a mother is just such an amazing gift, and I look forward to seeing how your life unfolds with them and bringing them into this world. And I think that's probably wraps it up for us. I mean, there's probably so much more we could talk about, but if we wanted to do another one in a little while when you get more settled and start figuring out how your life unfolds, we can definitely do an update.
Thank you. Thank you for the chat.
Oh, you're so welcome. It was really nice to finally get on and do this. So we will be in touch.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the Wide Open Podcast on Spotify and follow at Kela Louise on Instagram. That's at Kela Louise, and look forward to more episodes.